Hello and welcome to week 8 of the 2024 Season 1 Class A schedule in iRacing. My name is Michael Conti and this is the Team Conti Sim Performance race guide for this week's events at Iowa Speedway. So Iowa is a super unique track in the sense that it kind of blends intermediate style racing with short track racing. It's not the shortest track on the schedule, but heavy braking zones, tight quarter racing, lots of throttle management on exit, paired with the multi-groove nature of this place, really takes the best bits and pieces of each track type, mashes them together, and puts on some really good engaging racing throughout the week. So we'll go over some things over the course of this 30-lap run here, as we typically do. Entry to turn 1 is very similar to Richmond in the sense that you're doing a lot of turning in while using quite a bit of brake pressure. This is really critical to master so you can maximize how deep you can drive into the corners when you're trying to push it 100%. But also, in doing so, you want to make sure that you're comfortable doing that. It's very easy to start slipping the right rear when you get on the brakes right there. If you're too deep, using too much wheel or whatever, you can really start to slide that rear end out from that initial turn off the wall all the way to the center. Doing that repeatedly lap after lap will cause that right rear to overheat, and then all of your drive off will be gone as well. So you'll literally be loose from the moment you step on the brake to the moment you finally exit the corner. So not a great feeling. So really getting braking down on entry to turn 1 is a critical part of running well at Iowa. 1 and 2 is very bumpy no matter if you're running top or bottom, but bottom especially, there's a big bump right in the center, right at about where you start to commit to throttle, so be careful of that. 3 and 4 is much flatter, much smoother. You really just have to roll around the bottom with a lot of tact and a lot of discipline. Very easy to start to throttle up quickly and drive the car up the track and across the progressive banking as you get close to the wall. But that can also do some bad things to those rear tires as well as the run goes on. So you'll see here, good amount of trail brake to the center, and then just really using a lot of partial throttle until I'm almost up off the corner, even on these new tires. Starting in the 24.0s with our track conditions we built the setup in, the optimal lap times are probably 0.2 quicker than this, but as we typically talk about, tire management, especially early in these runs, is just as important this week as it's been the rest of the season. So really no need to push to 100% early. Back that pace up a couple tenths over the first 10 to 15 laps, and it'll pay off big time later, especially with maintaining some good forward drive and not getting those tires too hot and slick. As the run goes on and the race goes on, the bottom gets rubbered up. There's definitely going to be a lot of opportunity to move around on this track at both ends and find more time elsewhere. Over the course of this run, I keep it pinned to the bottom because ultimately the longer you can keep it on the bottom, better your tires are going to be, and really the more lap time you'll probably be able to sustain. But there will be points in the run where you probably have to move up, whether you're racing another car or if the bottom just gets rubbered in and slick. To make more lap time, you might have to move to the middle or move to the top. So even though we don't really go over it too much in this video, in this lap guide, I would definitely encourage anybody listening and watching this to not only run laps in the bottom, but definitely explore up the track as well. Lap time fall off over the course of 30 laps is right at about a second, maybe a little bit less, just depending on how quick you fire off. The limitations are going to be, as we talked about a lot at the beginning of this, entry to turn 1 can definitely get loose. Center at both ends can get tight if you're trying to roll too much speed, and then exit at both ends can definitely get loose if you're using too much throttle too quickly and spinning that right rear and losing grip. Really, name of the game is just to be smooth. We'll see very smooth braking, about 25% max brake pressure into 1, trailing off by the center slowly, a little bit of free roll, and then slowly working throttle in it, finding that grip, finding that limit of the grip, getting the rears to hook, and then throttling up. A little bit more free roll in 3 and 4 just because it's the tighter, flatter end of the track. When you start moving up the track, you'll notice that you can probably carry more speed into the corner. You can also carry a little bit more throttle off the corner. Where you're going to lose is just the fact that you're running so much higher up the track, so you're having to go a greater distance. You're trying to do so in the same amount or lesser time, and it's definitely hard to do it on new tires. It's hard to do it when the track is not exactly ready to be up there yet, but it will pay off later at some point. But to run that top effectively, or even the middle, you're definitely going to have to drive in a little bit deeper and then commit to throttle sooner too to generate that additional momentum in corner exit. Even being slightly off the yellow line, especially in 3 and 4, is going to cost you a lot of center rotation. So if you are running that bottom in 3 and 4, make sure that you're backing up entry enough and slowing the center roll down enough so that you can get that left front basically on the yellow line. Feel it to where that yellow line is pulling you through the corner and helping you turn. Whether you have to widen out your entry, use a little bit more brake, dial brake bias back, maybe if you're too tight rolling into the center. There's a lot that the driver can do at Iowa with their technique and then with the in-car controls as well to influence how the car drives on that particular lap and then how the car builds throughout the run. Overdriving entry could cause the car to start building tight. It could cause the car to build loose. Using too much throttle on exit will always cause the car to build loose. But you can mitigate a lot of that by changing that brake pressure around as well, and that brake bias. Remember, forward brake bias or more brake bias will make the car tighter on entry, generate more front tire heat. Less brake bias will move the bias to the rear and take away front tire temperature and shift that to the back, which will help the car build looser throughout the run. I'll cut out here for a couple laps, let you all watch what's going on here. As always, pay close attention to the inputs at the bottom, the throttle and pedals, and I'll be back around lap 20. Crossing the lap 20 mark here. Still feeling fairly neutral. The car starts to give up a little bit of natural center rotation, but that's probably going to be something that we have to compromise on in some way this week. If you set the car up to be super neutral early on and have really good center rotation throughout the run, you're probably going to be too loose on entry, you're going to be too loose on exit. So this is a hard track to set up for because you have to have good center rolls so you can make lap time, but you can't be so free in the center that you're sliding all over the place on entry when you start that initial brake pressure, or an exit when you start throttling up. So it was definitely challenging to get something that still rolled the center well enough but maintained good security entry and exit. But on this particular run here, between managing the tires well at the beginning and then making some good changes right before this, I think this is definitely a good compromise. There's a lot of ability to change my entry technique, widen out the entry, shallow out the entry, just depending on if I was tight or loose, what I was feeling. But you'll see here, not a whole lot of counter steer, a good tug on the wheel toward the center like we do at most short tracks, really get those front tires to hook and grip as you approach your minimum roll speed in the center. Don't be afraid to turn that wheel as you approach that minimum corner speed. That's good. That's a part of making time in the next gen of a short track. But yeah, you're probably going to be a little bit snug rolling the bottom. I think as the line moves up and you're not having to pinch the car so much, I think being a little bit snug is going to be a good thing. You know, if you're too loose, you won't be able to commit to throttle up top. So this will be okay. It'll be okay for us as the track evolves. But from a driving technique, not too much changes throughout the run. Probably need to just use a little bit more brake pressure as you go further into the run, just due to the tires having less grip. But your entry, your lift points are still fairly similar. Your angle is still fairly similar. Your approach is fairly similar. Might need to be a little bit more tentative on throttle on exit again due to that tire grip going away, but not a huge change in how you're attacking the laps as we approach lap 30 here. Past lap 30, there will be a good amount more fall off, and that'll really depend on how hard you pushed early. If you're exceeding the temperature thresholds on either of the right side tires, that's what your limiting factor is going to be. And once you start crossing that 275, 280 mark on these tires, it really starts to accelerate the tire wear, and that will start to accelerate the fall off as well. So manage early. Do not push harder than you have to. The key here is going to be to qualify well, get that track position from the start, manage that track position, but don't be so on the offense that you're burning tire when you don't need to be. Look at the pace of the cars around you, get a good read of the race, the people you're racing against, and determine how hard you have to push, and don't push any harder than that. Easier said than done. As somebody who's been doing this for as long as I have, it's pretty simple for me to figure out the pace, but I know for a lot of guys on here, that's a big area of opportunity. But really, just rule of thumb: don't push harder than you need to. Coming to take the last lap of this run here, lap 30. We've fallen off to the 24.8s. Again, started in the 24.0s. Still rolling the bottom, nice and smoothly. Pretty aggressive with the throttle there and exit, and it definitely took it. A little bit snug, but not bad. Still a good amount of trail brake into 3. Making sure I get that good front turn in the center, and a good amount of throttle up off, and plenty of forward bite at lap 30. We come across the line and ended at 24.864. So that's 30 laps at Iowa Speedway in the NextGen. This is 2024 Season 1 with Team Conti Sim Performance. Again, I'm Michael Conti. Thank you all for watching this video. Whether you're a customer or not, we appreciate you. We hope that you find value in these videos, and we wish you the best on track. Good luck.